Today, humans send roughly 23 billion text messages every single day. It is the default way we talk to each other. But to see how that started, we have to rewind to December 3rd, 1992. A 22-year-old software engineer named Neil Papworth sat down at his office desk in the UK in front of a beige, heavy PC terminal, preparing to run a live test. He typed out exactly 14 characters, "Merry Christmas." Then he hit enter. The message zipped across the Vodafone network to a company director named Richard Jarvis, who was out at a holiday party. He looked down at his phone and saw those pixelated letters glowing on the screen. Here is the strange thing about that moment. Jarvis read the message, but he couldn't reply. His phone simply didn't have a keyboard. The entire system they were testing was originally built as a one-way street. The device Jarvis was holding, the Orbitel 901, weighed more than 4.5 pounds. It was the size of a brick, designed exclusively to make and receive voice calls. There was absolutely no interface to type letters. Back in 1992, if you wanted to send a text to a mobile device, you had to be sitting at a full computer terminal on the transmitting end. Telecom executives viewed this technology purely as an automated communication channel. It was a tool to send you billing alerts or notify you of a voicemail. The idea that two regular people would want to type messages back and forth wasn't even on their radar. The blueprint for this system was actually drawn up 8 years earlier in 1984. A man named Friedhelm Hillebrand and a Franco-German engineering team came up with the concept of the short message service. They were developing the GSM cellular standard, the network that would eventually cover Europe. GSM transmitted human voice calls in segmented digital packets rather than one continuous unbroken stream. Look at this diagram. It shows a continuous cellular voice signal stream. Notice these tiny uniform empty gaps between the larger voice data packets. The engineers realized they didn't need to build a new network for text data. They could use these brief invisible pauses in the voice signaling channel. Those micro pauses were perfectly sized for tiny bursts of text data to slip right in completely unnoticed without ever interrupting the main phone call. The messages hitchhiked. Because the service rode for free on top of the existing voice infrastructure, operators initially gave it away. They completely missed its commercial value because it cost them almost nothing to run. But hitchhiking in those tiny data gaps meant strict size limits. To figure out exactly how small a message needed to be, Hillebrand sat at his typewriter. He analyzed physical postcards and telex messages, manually counting the characters on the page. He concluded that 160 characters was the precise maximum space a person needed to adequately express a complete human thought. He built that strict boundary into the global standard. Yet, despite having a perfectly engineered free data transmission system, almost nobody used it. By 1995, the average American was sending just 0.4 texts per month, barely half a message. Network operators mostly ignored the feature. They had built a flawless digital highway, but they lacked the imagination to see what kind of traffic it could actually carry. The traffic eventually arrived, but it came from an unexpected demographic: teenagers in Europe. They realized that texting was a cheap, highly covert way to communicate under the radar without having to make a voice call. This massive wave of entirely unintended user demand caught the industry off guard. Hardware companies were forced to adapt, scrambling to convert their heavy voice-only bricks into devices actually capable of two-way texting. By 1997, the hardware caught up to the behavior. Nokia released the 9000i communicator, featuring a full physical QWERTY keyboard built right into the handset, but users still had to deal with that 160 character limit, and before full keyboards, the slow agony of multi-tap typing. To survive the constraints, people invented a completely new digital lexicon. Abbreviations like LOL and OMG were born out of absolute necessity to save space. The most dominant social communication format on the planet was built entirely by kids hacking a corporate notification system to talk to their friends. By 2007, the culture reached a tipping point. With the launch of devices like the iPhone, text messages officially surpassed phone calls as the primary form of mobile communication. The physical boundaries of SMS even shaped the architecture of the modern internet. When Twitter launched, it adopted a strict 140 character limit, deliberately leaving 20 characters for a username so tweets could fit perfectly inside a single text message. In 2021, an NFT of Neil Papworth's original 14-character Merry Christmas message went up for auction in Paris. It sold for roughly $121,000. The legacy of that first unanswered message shows us how innovation actually works. The most impactful technological leaps rarely come from how an engineer designs a tool in a lab. They happen when ordinary people take that tool and figure out how to misuse it. It happened with the telegraph. It happened with SMS. It's happening right now with something you use every day. Everything you need to go deeper is linked below. Subscribe and watch the next video on our channel.